I the jerk for not being open to the idea of changing my first name like my foster parents suggested? I am a 16-year-old male and a foster child. I was taken from my mother 3 years ago because she is not doing well mentally, and it was not considered safe for me to live with her. My current foster parents are the ones I hope to stay with until I turn 18. They are the best I have had, and I bounced around a lot, especially during my first year. But there is something that has come up, and now I am wondering. My name is Ryder. My foster parents do not outright say they hate it, but I think I saw my foster mother cringe at my name before. My foster father asked me when we first met what my middle name was, and I guess that was not a name they liked either. So they call me Rye, and I think sometimes they tried to say, my name is Ryan instead of Ryder. A month ago, they asked me if I had ever considered changing my first name when I turned 18 to something more sophisticated sounding. They even said Ryan could be an idea since it is so close, and they share a nickname. I told them I liked my names and did not ever think of changing them. They did not say any more then, but a week later, they told me they had thought a lot about my future, and they worried my name would be something that holds me back. My foster mother said it sounds inappropriate when said fast, and they felt I deserved better than that. I told them it did not bother me, and I liked that my mother had chosen my name. That was the end of it again. Last week, they brought it up again and showed me articles on the importance of a name and naming babies for adult life, instead of being cute or fun as kids. They told me they could not make me do it, which I knew. But they would like me to strongly consider it so I could have the chance at a professional future and be taken seriously. They said they would hate to see me passed over for jobs because of my name, and they feel like a much older version of me will not find the name as cool as I do now. They asked if I trusted them, and I said yes. They said if I do trust them, I should really give some thought to what I could change my name to that would be a better name for adult me. I told them I was really never going to be okay with that. I felt like it was a waste of time and would get me stuck with a name I would not like. They asked why I was so okay with dismissing my future self, and why I could not try when they were doing all they could to help me. I could tell it really got to them that I was still so against it. Am I the asshole? Names like Ryder might seem unusual to some, but plenty of people with unique names are doing just fine in 2024. Many work in diverse fields and receive polite compliments on their names. If anything, having an uncommon name can even help with search engine optimization. What's most important is that you like your name and feel comfortable with it. Am I the jerk for questioning my family's alcoholic behavior when my mother was dying of alcoholism? I come from a large family that has always had a pretty unhealthy culture of alcoholism. Since we were teenagers, we were encouraged by our parents to drink, but only when at home, when they were having a party. As adults, every time we got together, it was all alcohol all the time. My brother and mother subsequently developed severe alcoholism starting in the early 2000s. Fast forward to early 2023, and my brother has gone through rehab and is sober, but extremely ill with liver disease. My mother had failed multiple rehab attempts, and at 78 years old, was still drinking heavily. Unsurprisingly, my mother's kidneys stopped working in early 2023 from her drinking, and she was hospitalized. Because I live out of town, I took time off from work to drive 7 hours to see her, only to stay in a hotel because one of my sisters had her entire family, consisting of 8 people including a puppy and an infant, staying at my parents' house. The next day, hospital staff told us there was nothing they could do for Mom but send her home with hospice, as she only had a few days to live. We arranged for transportation and set her up in a hospital bed in my parents' home. She was already in really bad shape and not talking much. The hospice nurse came over, looked around at the 20-some people drinking at the house and plainly stated, "I know you all love her and want to be with her, but what she needs is quiet right now. She knows she is dying and needs time to reflect before she passes." My 80-year-old father is hard of hearing and was unable to hear what the hospice nurse was saying because of the drinking and laughter happening in the next room. I had to go ask them to be quiet, and I got major attitude from one of my sisters. Mom would want to know that we're having fun, and she would want us to be having a good time. After saying goodnight to my mom, I decided to head back to my hotel. On the way out the door, I leaned over to my younger sister and said, "Maybe we should get an Airbnb so people who want to party can go there." Then I went back to my hotel. I received a long text from one of my sisters, basically cursing me out for not helping. My brother couldn't even go over to see my mom because they were drinking around the clock for several days straight. I ended up leaving and going home as I couldn't afford to pay for a hotel any longer. My mom died 2 days later, and I never got to say goodbye to her. It is September 2024, and I am still not speaking to 2 of my sisters over this. My sisters say they want to move past this, but I am still angry at their alcohol-driven behavior. They say, Mom wouldn't have wanted this or Dad doesn't want this, yet they still don't admit any wrongdoing. Am I the antagonist for not wanting to let it go? Am I the antagonist for wanting to move on with my own life without them after that incident? Nothing you have done here makes me think you are the jerk here, and it's heartbreaking that your brother couldn't even go see your mom because of his drinking. It's clear that your mom recognized her problem and tried to fix it, but it's tragic how her children turned out. You have every right to be upset and should focus on taking care of yourself first. Maybe this will be a wake-up call for them, but if it's not, it's better to distance yourself for your own well-being. Am I the jerk for not telling my spouse's family that I speak their language? My husband Peter, who is 29 years old, and I, who am 27 years old, have been married for about 3 years. We have one child together and I was pregnant with our second child. I am from Western Canada while he is from Germany. We lived in Canada for a long time, but because of inflation, moving back to Germany seemed like a better option for us. We bought a nice house in Hanover where Peter is from. The day after our flights to Germany, we all visited Peter's family. This was the second time I had seen them, the first being at our wedding. They greeted us and brought us inside of the house, fussing over my son. We had dinner, and soon we left the house, wanting to settle into our new home. We visited Peter's family often for the next few months. However, I started to realize that they would sometimes speak about me in German. They made rude comments about my hair and makeup, questioned my fashion choices, and overall were just very unkind to me. They also said mean things about my pregnant belly, which I was already insecure about. I ended up talking to my husband about this. I told him that I didn't like the way that they were treating me. I said that I hated how my every choice was judged. He told me that he would talk to his family. The next time that we went to his parents' house, there were no more mean comments. For about 3 months, it was like nothing ever happened. I gave birth to a perfect baby girl that we named Lilith. Peter's family was very upset when they heard the name. Lilith means ghost, or of the night. We didn't pick this name because of its meaning, but because it is a name that every girl in my family has had for many years. My middle name is Lilith, along with my mother's, my grandmother's, and even my great-grandmother's. For a while, I didn't visit my in-laws. I didn't want to hear them talk about how I shouldn't have named my daughter Lilith. But yesterday, we saw them again. It was my mother-in-law's birthday. As soon as we showed up, things started to go badly. Everybody wanted to hold Lilith, which made my mother-in-law upset because people weren't paying attention to her. This also made me overwhelmed. I didn't want people holding her. I was going through pretty bad postpartum depression, and it was still pretty early to see people. I let people look at her, but declined when anyone asked to hold her. During dinner, I heard my sister-in-law talking to my mother-in-law in German. I heard her complaining about how she couldn't hold my baby. My sister-in-law even had the audacity to call me, and I quote, "a fat, ugly, hokey addict." I turned to my sister-in-law and mother-in-law and told them off in German. I basically said that I have always known what they have said about me, but calling me names was the last straw. I also mentioned how I have known German for almost my whole life. The table instantly blew up. People were yelling at me because apparently this was all my fault. I left with Peter and we haven't talked to them since. So am I the jerk? It's clear that they've been extremely rude and judgmental towards you, and you are definitely not the problem. Assholes never take ownership of their actions, so they continuously believe they are right, and anyone who challenges them is at fault. Your husband should have stood up for you from the start and told them off, making him a bit of an asshole. It's unfortunate to have married into a family of assholes who refuse to acknowledge their own wrongdoings. Am I the jerk for screaming at my father and his wife and refusing to stop until I said what I needed to? I am a 16-year-old female and live with my father, his wife, my 2 step-siblings, and half-sibling. My parents divorced when I was 3, and I last saw my mother when I was 6. She lost custody of me because she is mentally ill, and her whole family is. My father was awarded primary custody of me, which became sole custody over time. I really only remember one visit with my mother, and she was very sick. We know her parents and her 4 siblings all suffered with their mental health, and likely the same condition. It is also believed her great-grandparents were mentally ill too, but she never knew them. I never knew anyone in her family. My father and his wife met when I was 5. We lived together when I was 6 and they got married when I was 7. She wanted to adopt me, but I said no. My mother pays child support and has never missed a payment, according to my grandfather. My father and his wife like to ignore my mental health and the family history and genetic component to mental illness. They like to pretend my father's wife is my mother, and they do not want me talking about my mother. I still do. It upsets them. I bring up the mental health reasons, and they tell me nurture is more important than nature. They tell me I am disrespectful for dismissing my father's wife's influence and place in my life, and how I have 2 parents in my home. I should not wonder about someone who did not love me enough to get herself together. I told them mental illness is not that straightforward, and they told me to focus on my real mom, meaning my father's wife. I do not call her my stepmother because of how dismissive she is about my mental health. The same reason my father is my father and not my dad. My grandmother never liked my mother, so she is on their side. But my grandfather is on my side. He also kept in touch with my mother secretly and checks in on her. I know I am mentally ill. I already have some issues. I told my father and he brushed it off as me imagining things, which I said yes, and that is my problem. But he does not want to hear it. His wife does not want me to talk about it when her kids are in the house. So, basically never. They saw me searching my mother's name online last week, and they told me to drop it and stop disrespecting my real mom, the woman who raised me and is the reason I am who I am. They said I keep looking for ways to push her away. I lost it. I started screaming that she is not my mom. She will never be my mom. She did not pass her DNA on to me, and it is not her medical history that is relevant to mine. I told them she cannot save me from mental illness, that they cannot ignore the problem and think it will not happen. They tried to stop me, but I kept going until I made it very clear how angry I was and how I would blame them if I got so bad it was harder to treat. They were angrier than I have ever seen them, especially because the other kids were in the house and heard everything. Am I the bad person? You did nothing to deserve criticism. Your dad and stepmom are ignoring the real issue here, and that's not fair to you. Keep advocating for yourself, and make sure to talk to a teacher or doctor about what you're going through. The longer mental health issues are left untreated, the harder they can be to manage. Am I the jerk for ignoring my friend during a breakup? I, 22-year-old female, have a friend, 20-year-old female, who was in a relationship for 4 months. During this time, she constantly bugged both me and my partner about whether or not I would stay with my partner if he did something her boyfriend did. She constantly compared my relationship to hers, telling me, "I wish him and I were like you two," and nagging me about how I managed to keep a man who is obsessed with me by my side all the time. Nothing he did was wrong or bad. He is just a man who struggles a little with communication. He put a lot of effort into the relationship. He even got a better paying job so he could help her out with bills. She treated him horribly. There was a lot of yelling and arguments happening all the time, to the point where he became extremely withdrawn whenever we went out as a group. It got so bad that he could not go out in public with her without her accusing him of looking at other girls. This man is almost blind without his glasses, and he did not wear them often when he was with her. He went out for dinner with my boyfriend and a few of their mates after studying all day for this new job. She attacked him via messages, calling him all sorts of names and accusing him of lying to her and never making time for her. He finally had enough and broke it off with her as calmly as he could. He stood his ground that he has nothing but respect for her and that he is sorry it had to happen this way. During that week, she had tried to end the relationship multiple times, so he finally hit his breaking point with her. She then called me hysterically crying, and I rushed to be by her side to calm her down so she did not do anything silly. Now I am getting spammed with messages like, "I'm not sure what I've done. Why did he do this to me? I just want him back, and I miss him." It is emotionally draining, and I have my own relationship to focus on. After the constant comparisons between my relationship and hers, the amount of times my partner and I tried to help them establish a healthy relationship, and dealing with the aftermath of the fights during public outings, I just do not know if I can deal with it mentally anymore. In my opinion, the relationship is toxic. They both have a lot of pain and anger from previous relationships, and they both, mainly her, rushed into things to try and get a relationship like mine and my partner's. She constantly messages me asking me to come over and see her, but I genuinely do not have the mental energy to have her crying in my lap for 2 hours straight. I love her, I really do, but she needs this time to sort her head out by herself. I can only give so much advice and love. She has other people she can go to, but I believe she comes to me because I am a mutual friend of her now ex-boyfriend, and she wants everything she says to be passed on to him. Am I the antagonist? You are not the cause of this issue. From the behavior described, she sounds toxic, manipulative, and emotionally abusive. Her over-the-top jealousy and constant complaints, after trying to break up multiple times in a week, are major red flags. Sometimes the best thing you can do for a friend is distance yourself and let them know their behavior isn't okay, even if it costs the friendship. Am I the jerk for telling my sibling he's just a kid isn't an excuse for a 13-year-old? My sister Elle, who is 36 years old, has a 13-year-old son, my nephew Tyler. Yesterday was my dad's birthday. The attendees included me, Elle, our other sister, our aunt and uncle, and our 3 cousins. The middle cousin, Grace, who is 32 years old, has a daughter, Brooklyn, who is 12 years old. Tyler and Brooklyn were the only children present. Brooklyn recently broke her ankle and needs crutches for a few weeks. The children were mostly in the living room, while everyone else was in the kitchen and dining room. I did not check on them much because I thought 13 and 12 were old enough to avoid doing anything extremely dangerous, like breaking a window. Besides, the living room is pretty close to the kitchen. We heard something crash down the stairs, followed immediately by shouting. Everyone's first instinct was to rush into the room, and so we did. We saw Tyler and Brooklyn wrestling over one of the crutches on the couch. Brooklyn was sitting on the couch, and Tyler was standing behind the couch. Brooklyn ended up falling backward off the couch and started crying. It turns out Tyler had thrown one of the crutches down the stairs into the basement and was trying to throw the other one downstairs as well. After we ensured Brooklyn was not seriously hurt, she ended up being fine. Grace started asking Tyler questions like, "What were you thinking? Why would you do that? What is the matter with you?" She was not yelling, but her voice was definitely raised. A few other people joined her, and Elle immediately jumped in front of them like a soldier, saying, "No one is hurt and he's just a kid." I thought that was ridiculous because although Brooklyn ended up being all right, she could have been hurt. A 13-year-old? Really? A kid? That is a teenager who should know better. I told her so, saying that just a kid is an excuse for children aged 11 and below. After that, it is not an excuse. Elle thought everyone overreacted, and she was upset, especially at me. Really? And for anyone asking, I do not know why Tyler did that. Maybe he thought it would be funny or something. But since L is so upset, I am wondering if maybe that was a line not to be crossed. Or maybe I am overthinking it. Well, you are not in the wrong here. Just a kid applies when a 4-year-old smears PB&J all over himself, not when a teenager purposely tries to harm an injured person. Tyler's behavior is likely enabled by his mom, who refuses to make him face the consequences of his actions. 6-year-olds know not to take away a mobility aid. This is basic empathy and respect. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.